Don't compare yourself to the dude who doesn't know who he is, right? So I think a lot of times we can judge other people who may not know who they are in their actions, but if they don't know their identity, how can I compare myself to them? And then even to the guy who does know who he is, right? He's a man of God. He's very confident. He's pursuing. God trusted you. If you go back to the very first number one of these 20 thoughts on marriage, God trusted you with your spouse. Dude, what is up? Welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes. You matter. You matter so much. The fact that you got out of bed this morning, put your feet on the ground, got to work, hugged your wife, loved your kids, like leaning into fatherhood is critical. You are changing the world, my friend. You are changing the world. And the fact that you're listening to this podcast, investing in yourself as a father is massive. This week is part 2 of a 2-part series I'm doing on 20 thoughts around marriage as I just celebrated my 20th wedding anniversary. So we'll get into it in a minute. Enjoy these thoughts, these nuggets on marriage. Dude, what is up? Welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes. You matter. You matter so much. The fact that you got out of bed this morning, put your feet on the ground, got to work, hugged your wife, loved your kids, like leaning into fatherhood is critical. You are changing the world, my friend. You are changing the world. And the fact that you're listening to this podcast, investing in yourself as a father is massive. This week is part 2 of a 2-part series I'm doing on 20 thoughts around marriage as I just celebrated my 20th wedding anniversary. So we'll get into it in a minute. Enjoy these thoughts, these nuggets on marriage. All right, dudes, welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast, where I interview incredible fathers, gaining wisdom from their stories for you and I to grow in our own fatherhood craft. I'm your guide, Ned Shout, father to 5 kiddos, currently ages 11 to 18. Wild. And husband to my rad wife, Sarah, and we just celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary. So yeah, dude, I'm in the thick of it, and I'm working daily to rebel against the low expectations for fathers and create a world where fathers know who they are as they show up for their families. You and I have the greatest opportunity to impact our world through the way we embrace our fatherhood role. This episode is brought to you by the Adventure of Fatherhood, helping men discover their powerful fatherhood role and build their fatherhood skills. The role of the father is to serve, guide, provide, protect, and of course, find joy and have fun in the messiness of it all. This week, I am doing part 2, 20 thoughts on marriage. And today we're going to go through thoughts 11 through 20. So let's get right into it. If you're watching this on YouTube, then you're going to see me looking at my other screen at my notes. And I'm sitting down because I want to. All right. Last week, so if you didn't listen to last week, I opened up a lot on the very end about a marriage event my wife and I went to, and some ahas that she shared with me that were vulnerable. And I don't know if they were hard. Yeah, they were hard to hear, maybe sad to hear, but ultimately beautiful to hear because we're digging into making this something beautiful and alive and nurturing it and growing it. All right. Number 11 is take lots of pictures. I mean, I have such a habit right now of my phone's in my pocket, double click that button on the side and boom, my camera's there and I take a picture. I mean, even to the point my three of my daughters were having dinner the other night and everyone left except my 3 of my daughters. We're all sitting out there at the table and we're there laughing. And I'm like, oh God, this moment is just for a moment. I was like, don't move, I'll be right back. And my Violet, she's like, oh God, he's going to get the camera. I come back, they're laughing, making stupid faces, but I just snapped it because in 10, 20, 30 years, I'm going to look at that moment and I'm going to go, this mattered. The other day I wrote a letter to my wife. I have a little blog where I write her letters, and I wrote her a letter on our 20th anniversary. And it's cool, like Google Photos, you go in, I'm sure Apple has this too, and you can search by a person's face. And so all these pictures, I'm looking through all these pictures of my wife, like us laughing on the beach, us taking care of things. Like I got pictures of her making cookies or cooking or on the couch with the kids or having a moment or playing with the dog. It's like all these micro moments that are happening. Like I want to snap those. And so to have thousands of photographs. Anyways, as I wrote the blog, I was able to go look through, years of photos. And I just found this one of us we were in this little gold town in Northern California where they do like the old timey clothes and you get like a picture, like you're miners or something. And me and my son are holding rifles and the girls are holding fans and these dresses. And it just, I mean, my kids were little at this point. They were little, but it was this beautiful moment of time with my bride, with my wife. And then I think back like, whoa, dang, she raised all these kids. It's just photographs, pictures. Ah, love them. Love them. So take pictures. That's number 11. Number 12, and this kind of goes in line with this, is journal. Dude, as a dude, you are the captain of your ship. You are leading, charging, serving your family. Having a journal where you can sit down and A, process something you're thinking about, and or B, just write down a moment. Regularly, if I have a moment with a kid or my spouse, I'll go write down what happened. Now, check this out. On our 20th anniversary, just a couple days ago, the 10th, my wife had brought out this journal that we started writing into each other when we were dating. And dude, the stuff we were writing to each other was so beautiful and amazing. And both of us were kind of like, whoa, we wrote this. And in a sense, you could go, oh man, we used to be so sweet. But it was more like, wow, that person's here. That person's in me. That person is a part of us. And in some ways, it's like a reminder of how we feel about each other, or a reminder of our young love, and a reminder of the type of relationship that we want. So journaling, highly encourage it. And then even writing notes to your spouse still versus a text or a conversation. I mean, dude, something important. Okay, number 13 thought on marriage is, do not compare yourself, your marriage, or you as the man, as the husband. Don't compare yourself to, two thoughts here. Don't compare yourself to the dude who doesn't know who he is, right? So I think a lot of times we can judge other people who may not know who they are in their actions, but if they don't know their identity, how can I compare myself to them? And then even to the guy who does know who he is, right? He's a man of God. He's very confident. He's pursuing. God trusted you. If you go back to the very first, number 1 of these 20 thoughts on marriage, God trusted you with your spouse. Your spouse doesn't need some other dude. She needs you. It's your responsibility. Take ownership of this marriage. Lead this marriage. Do not hear me say control. I'm not saying control. I'm saying die, love, and serve. Die, love, and serve. Over and over and over and over and over. Oh my gosh, let me see if I can find this. I'm pausing this. I've been reading this thing and I got to read it to you. Okay, check it. The Rule of Saint Benedict. So Saint Benedict, 6th century monk, and he wrote this book called The Rule about how to be a monk, right? Oh, look, I opened up page 35. Chapter 4 is on humility. And this is what I have highlighted and I've read several times as I'm thinking through, desiring to be more humble in my marriage and just in life. The 4th step of humility, I'm reading this. The 4th step of humility is that in this obedience under difficult, unfavorable, or even unjust conditions, his heart quietly embraces suffering and endures it without weakening or seeking escape. Dude, how many men are seeking escape? Maybe you're not leaving your marriage, but you're escaping to video games, you're escaping to alcohol, you're escaping to weed, you're escaping to a hobby. Like, if you do those things, whatever, but what's the motive? What's the heart behind why you're doing those things? For scripture, I'm going to keep reading here. For scripture has it, anyone who perseveres to the end will be saved, Matthew 10:25. And again, be brave of heart and rely on the Lord. Another passage shows how the faithful must endure everything, even contradiction for the Lord's sake, saying in the person of those who suffer, for your sake, we are put to death. Continually, we are regarded as sheep marked for slaughter. Dude, don't compare yourself. And this isn't meaning like, oh, you are the one carrying the brunt of the marriage. I think it's probably the other way around in a lot of circumstances. And nor am I saying that I am in my marriage. What I'm saying is, how can I show up? How can you show up? Don't compare yourself to someone else. Who is it that you are called to be in that marriage? And called is even, I kind of hate that word. You and I have purpose. We have purpose. Love your wife like Christ loved the church. That's hard, dude. That's hard. But as you and I step into it, we're operating in our purpose. We're operating and fulfilling our purpose for walking on this earth, man, being a part of this bigger picture of kingdom. And I really believe it happens in family, right in our home. And I believe it starts with you and I. Number 14, metrics. Okay. What metrics are you evaluating for your success in life? Now, we count our money. We might count our macros. We might count our time, where we spend in time. Are you paying attention to the time you spend with your wife? Now, it may not be just quantity, but quality. I for the last few years have measured every minute. I mean, it's within like probably 15, 30 minutes. And 2 years ago, I spent 5% of my time with my wife. And at the end of the year, when I evaluated, I was like, whoa, it doesn't feel like I spent more time in a gym almost intentionally. And so I made a goal for 2023 to double it. And I ended up spending like 9.5% of my time with my wife, which you're like, maybe that sounds shitty. It sounds weird. It's like you're countering it. But if I say it matters, do I have a way to show that, yes, it matters? And not show to you, but to show to myself, like, am I making sure to create space to make this thing that I say is most important, make it most important? Now, number 15, and this one is something that's challenged me this week as I've been thinking, okay, because we got to 20 years, kind of evaluating, thinking, processing. And 1 Corinthians and the Beatitudes and the fruits of the Spirit have been really on my mind the past week, and especially the last couple years as I've been digging into more about marriage. Now, metrics, okay? It's easier to count my macros. It's easier to pay attention to my dollar bills. I love paying attention to my time. But if I were to, on January 1, whenever, put a rating next to the fruits of the Spirit, or let's just say, love is patient, kind, not arrogant, doesn't keep a record of wrong. If I were to give myself a rating on those and then ask my spouse to give me a rating on those, and then maybe ask my kids to give me a rating, if I did that on January 1, 2023 and did it again on January 2024, would those numbers increase? Would the way that I feel about myself, the way my wife feels about me, or the way that my kids feel about me be like, whoa, yeah, Dad, this is growing. This is a feeling we get from you. Or is it the same? Or is it worse? Am I more patient today than I was a year ago? Am I more kind than I was a year ago? Am I more faithful than I was a year ago? Am I more self-controlled than I was a year ago? If I want to make marriage a priority, if I want to be 80 years old if I want to be 70, if I want to be 70 years old at my 50th wedding anniversary, I made a joke about this to somebody recently, like I want to be at my 50th wedding anniversary and there just be laughter in the room and we're dancing and my wife like leans into my ear and it's like, hey, let's sneak away and go fool around or something. I think I said something else, but along those lines. Am I living that kind of life where the love is expanding and love, not the feeling that Ned feels love every single day because that becomes selfish, but am I patient and kind? Just, you get it, right? If you and I were to consider those metrics as it pertains to our marriage and even ask our spouse, hey, here's these things, here's these characteristics of love. Would you rate me on these? Now, don't do it back, but would you rate me on these? Or rate yourself. Rate yourself. Look at how you show up for a week and rate yourself and then put it on your calendar and do it again in 6 months. If it's not changing, then you and I are focusing on the wrong things. Number 16, invest in your marriage. Is your marriage an asset? Now, I remember, dude, I am cheap in well, it's not cheap. I am frugal. There we go. I'm a frugal guy. I do not understand why popcorn is $8 and a soda is $8 or whatever, $10 each at the theater. It doesn't cost justify at all, ever, all day, except I was doing coaching with a I was a client of somebody coaching, and we were talking about dates. We were talking about going on a date, and I'm like, dude, a $10 Coke, that's dumb. And he said, Ned, if I gave you this business opportunity, would you go for it? I'm like, oh yeah. Yeah. He's like, you're missing the point of this date. And it's not about like, you don't got to blow $10 on the Coke, but can I walk in and buy my wife a Coke if that's what she wants, without the money being even a thing, because I'm investing, experiencing time with her? That matters. And that changed. So am I looking at my marriage as an asset that I want to nurture, take care of, and see that asset grow and flourish? Or am I treating it like a liability? Like, oh, frick, come on. If we were to look at this as an asset, the most important asset in our life, I mean, because really, you guys, this gift, like if my daughters see that I make this an asset, if my son sees that I make this an asset, we're talking about having impact for 1,000 years now, because it's going to get passed down generation to generation if that's the way that I'm pursuing this thing. Okay, number 17, laughter. Laughter, laughter, laughter. One of my favorite things about my wife is when I hear her laugh, like a genuine giggle, laugh, snort, whatever comes out. I love it. I love it. I mean, what's happening with laughter? One, if I can make her laugh, then I feel like, yeah, like that's that feels good as her dude, her man, to make her giggle or laugh. What else is happening is like people laugh when they feel free, when they feel stable, when they're willing to be vulnerable and silly. I mean, the other night we were laying outside, the kids went to bed or were in their rooms. We were laying outside looking at the stars, just kind of talking, hanging for a minute. And she was laughing about something, and just time stopped. It's perfect. Is there space? Is there margin? Is there opportunity? Do you make your wife laugh? Is there space for that? Does she trust you? Is laughter a part of your marriage? There's just so much that comes from the space around the freedom of laughter. It's joy, right? Like you could have a rough day, and still find the joy and the laughter in the day. Number 18, seasons. With marriage, there are seasons. And I mean, sometimes it could feel like the ups and downs in a day or a week even, but then there's definite seasons. And are you and I paying attention to the seasons of what's on the horizon and then what we're moving out of? So I'm just going to give you an example. When you have little kids, when you have babies, you're in a season. When you have elementary kids, you're in a season. When you're a young married couple, you're in a season. And sometimes it's like, hey, what do you need from me? How can I best show up right now for you in this season? Now, one that was really obvious to me is when my kids stopped needing my wife as much, I noticed a big shift for her in season. So if your wife stays home, especially, I think, and maybe even if she doesn't, you and I can find a lot of identity and purpose in our job. And when my kids stopped needing my wife as much, I noticed this different sense of like, whoa, she's changing seasons. And I want to help be there, walk with her, help her notice, see, and be okay with like, yo, it's okay for you to be like, what now, or how now, or what do you want to do? But then there was beautiful moments of this too. Like I remember, and who knows who it was, her or me or whatever. But all of a sudden we were in this season where our kids were now old enough to go on roller coasters. And I don't know how we did it or worked it out or whatever, but this was like a super rad summer that they all got season passes to Six Flags roller coaster, Great America style thing. And they went a whole bunch, and like it was their thing and it wasn't mine, and I wasn't a part of it. And that was really good for them. And it was this moment, I think, where they saw mom as a fun mom. Okay, dudes, there's the ticket. That's the nugget. Help your wife get to also be fun mom. Okay, so a couple things. All right, baby season, young kid season, create space for your wife to go out and do some things with her girlfriends or alone. I remember I sent my wife to a cabin for a few days on her own, and it was like really meant a lot. I mean, if I were to just send her to a hotel with, a Coke and a magazine, she'd be psyched to just like nobody's kind of like asking her for everything when the kids were little. And then, so that's one, create space for her to be just her, create space for her to be with friends, and then creating space for her to be fun, Mom. And then now what I'm realizing too is this new season where we got a kids going to college, and really our youngest is 11, is that we're in this season. And I think this might be why we're leaning more into the best friend thing, which I think I talked about earlier on the last episode, is we're in a season where there's opportunity for us to like create this new friendship and time together. Okay, number 19, because I got to go to the track with my daughter. So I'm going to give these to you, and then I'm going to go hang out with my daughter. Number 19, accountability. Dudes, as I've leaned into marriage, I have to have somebody I'm accountable to. I can't just be accountable to my wife because it's easy to just think she's nagging me. I need a dude to bounce things off of. I need somebody that I can be 100% vulnerable and share. Not that I can't be with my wife, but also, so I got Pastor Nathan. We meet every other week, and it's like I give him everything. Here's everything, bro. I'll give it all to him. And so creating accountability. If you're accountable to nobody, you are going to have stuff in the darkness, and it will, there is an attack on marriage. There's an attack on family. Whatever you want to think that attack is, look around. Marriage is not a priority or whatever. You and I got to create accountability and vulnerability for ourselves. All right. Number 20. Here's several books that have helped. And now you and I must continuously be investing in ourselves when it comes to our marriages. So my last thought is never stop learning, never stop growing, never stop journaling, diving into making this investing in this, right? I don't want to use the word becoming or the best marriage or whatever. Just make it important and a priority. Okay, some books. A book called Stability by my friend, Pastor Nathan. It's written to pastors, but just like how I read you a bit of the rule from St. Benedict, okay, you leading your home is more important than a monk leading a monastery. It's more important than a pastor leading a church. It is. So read Stability, talk about how to have stability in your home. It's written for churches, but dude, it's so good for your home. Becoming a King by Morgan Snyder. Incredible. Multiple dudes I've talked to, this has changed their life. The Unhiding by Elijah Campbell. I had Kelly Flanagan on the podcast. We talked about this. I actually had Morgan Snyder on Becoming a King as well, and Nathan Oates on Stability. But The Unhiding of Elijah Campbell by Kelly Flanagan. If you are 30 years old or older, this is mandatory reading to graduate life. Gotta read it. You have to read it or listen to it on Audible. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it. All right. And then I just heard this. The Meaning of Marriage by Tim Keller. If a marriage license is going to be handed out, this book should be authorized. Meaning like you have to read this book. The Meaning of Marriage by Tim Keller. Dude, go read those two books. Your life will be changed. And if it's not, message me and I'll Venmo you $40 for the books and another 40 for your time. Dude, for real. So good. All right, my dudes, that finishes my 20 thoughts on marriage. This matters. You matter. Don't miss your opportunity to lean into your marriage. What a gift. What a gift. And again, I think I said it on the last one, if you want to set up a call and talk about life, family, marriage with me, hit me up, ned@rebellandcreate.com. All right, dudes, write a review if this is helpful, beneficial. Much love to you. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you for listening to Fatherhood Field Notes. What you do matters. Don't be like everybody else. Be yourself. That's who your spouse, your community, and your kids need. This is your guide, Ned Shout. Together, let's rebel against the view that fatherhood has little impact and create lives engaged in mastering the craft of fatherhood. I look forward to hanging out with you next time.